Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbos Parshat Lech Lecha. God tells Abraham to go, to leave your home of your father, leave your birthplace, and go into the land which I will show you. In which Avram goes to the land of Israel. He is there with his nephew Lot, in which they separate and they go their separate ways in order that their shepherds should not have any conflict with each other. And it is then that Lot is captured. He was captured by the 4 kings versus the 5 kings, in which Abraham hears about. He hears about, it says in the Torah, by Yavai HaPalit, comes this Palit. Who is this Palit? And so the answer is, Rashi says, this Palit was Og, the king of Bashan. He goes and tells Avram that his nephew Lot was captured, ultimately telling Avram to go and save his nephew. But Rashi writes, one of the only places in the Torah that Rashi writes this, that he was hoping that Abraham would go to war, and in this war, he would get killed, and then he'd be able to take Abraham's wife, Sarah, to marry her, as she was one of the most beautiful women in the world at the time. And so, Og is doing a good deed, because he's telling Avram that his nephew was captured, but ultimately the purpose of that was in order for him to hope that Abraham would get killed and he'll be able to take his wife. Fast forward 450 years later, Moses is towards the end of the book of Deuteronomy, and Moses is marching with the Jewish people through nation after nation, the Jebusites, the Yevusis, the Ammonites, the Moabites, and conquering nation after nation, heading into the land of Israel. But when he gets to the nation, which Og was the king, he gets very afraid. And God right away tells him, do not be afraid, Moses. Al tira abdi Moshe, do not be afraid, my servant Moshe. He says, why would all of a sudden Moses went from nation after nation? Why would he be afraid? And the answer, it says over there, is that Avram was afraid, Hashem is chusa, that maybe his merit for saving 450 years earlier, for saving Lot, would protect him against the war against the Jewish people. And so, therefore, right away, God tells him, says, do not worry, that merit is not going to protect him, and I will make sure that they will still be able to conquer this nation and be able to head into the land of Israel. The obvious question is, why would Moshe be afraid? Why is Moshe afraid? What merit does he have? That he warned Abraham, in order to really, what was the purpose of it? The intent was not to do anything good, but in order to get Avram killed and to marry Sarai, to be able to take Sarah as his wife? And the answer is yes. That's exactly what he was worried about, because at the end of the day, even though his intent was bad, but the mitzvah, the actual deed, was good. And that itself is enough to protect. You know, in life, sometimes we have very situations where we have very good intentions, but we don't actually do the good thing. Or we can have terrible intentions, but we do something good with it. And the reality is that the deed is the deed. If I have great kavanah, great thought, that I'm going to put on tefillin, and we have learn Kabbalah and prepare ourselves, but I don't actually put on the tefillin, then I never did the mitzvah of putting on tefillin. Whereas on the flip side, if I put on tefillin, but I didn't have proper thoughts the whole time, I still did the mitzvah of tefillin. And so yes, it's very important to have proper intent. But even if without proper intent, the deed, ha'maisa hu ikar, the main thing is the deed. It also teaches us, many people say, look, this guy, he's doing this good thing because really he's a bad person. Or look at this person that he's going to synagogue because, don't look at it, look at what he's doing. Look at his action. The action is what counts, not necessarily the intent. And so obviously it's better to have good intent, but the action is the main thing. And this is what Moshe was afraid. Moshe was afraid that because Og, 450 years earlier, did this mitzvah, and he warned Avram, ultimately in order for Avram to get killed. But he warned Avram, because of that, Lot was saved. Maybe that will give us a merit. It teaches us the power of a mitzvah. Let's go out this week, Lech Lecha, go out from ourselves, go out from our comfort zones. The idea of Lech Lecha is go out from a comfort zone and do a mitzvah, do a good deed, that's something that's outside of our space. And if we do that, God will give us all of the blessings that He promised us in this week's Torah portion. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll see you tonight, 7 o'clock, tomorrow morning, 10:15.